When when it's time to begin, it's on the Rewind to Raw with John Pollock and Wai Ting. The A-Team that makes sense of these things we see in the ring every week on TV. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night. Download it Tuesday morning from the Post Wrestling site. It's Rewind to Raw for Monday night on USA Now on the John and Wai Take the Mic.
Welcome to Rewind to Raw. It's John Pollock. It's Wai Ting. This is Rewind to Raw. How are you, Wai?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing just fine. Yourself?
You all right?
Yeah, no, I'm just a little tired. That's all.
Well, that last 40 minutes of Raw, I can understand.
Yeah. I mean, it was that, I think coupled with some of the problems that came with daylight savings time, just throwing off everybody's schedules. I mean, I'm a little bit tired as a result, unfortunately, so please bear with me.
Did you notice how much I was fighting through Elimination Chamber last night? I was dying from the effects of just losing that 1 hour. And it really hit me last night, just having to sit down and stare at that screen for 4+ hours.
I mean, I didn't really notice because I think I was trying to stay up myself.
You and I might have gone, I would say, 2 solid hours without speaking.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it's a remarkable feat, I will say, for our friendship, that I can go that long without speaking to someone and not feel a certain sense of being neurotic. It's just, I feel you know me enough to know I'm not being rude. I have nothing to say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I understand. And this is also a great reminder why you and I would be terrible candidates to do any sort of watch-along live streaming, because it would be the most boring.
I joked during the show that we should totally do it, and we just don't talk for the entire time. That would be something, wouldn't it?
Well, we could replace ourselves with like a still photo, like a still screenshot, and I think it'd be the same effect.
Just pipe in the audio, and we've got like just occasionally we'll blink.
Yeah, it's essentially what it's like. So, yeah.
Well, it really hit me because after that UFC show on Saturday, by the time I got the show up, all of a sudden with the time change, I went to sleep. It was 5 a.m, and then I got up at 8:30. And I didn't feel that tired. I had a lot of stuff I had to do on Sunday, but come Elimination Chamber, like an hour into that show, that was when it hit me. But then I got my second win for our show. So, you pace yourself.
I mean, the idea really is, I think kind of silly. Imagine if we didn't have daylight savings time and everybody all of a sudden just had to go to work at 7 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. The world would be in shambles.
Well, is there not something that British Columbia is considering not recognizing it any longer?
I think I've heard that. Yeah, I don't know. That is so far down in the cycle of news that's out there today that I probably completely missed it.
How much is your day-to-day consumption of news consisting of all of the preventable measures being taken for the coronavirus? Because it is just day after day. This is growing so much more by just each passing day that it's affecting everything. And I think we'd be absolutely naive to not think that there is the possibility that Mania weekend is going to be subject to all of this in 4 weeks, potentially.
Oh, absolutely. Of course.
At minimum, extreme precautions are going to be taken if all these shows go ahead. And you have to be bracing for the possibility that some of these events could be affected.
I am well aware. Absolutely. It's certainly dominated my timeline to the point where I'm almost like I'm muting like these trends just because I don't really need to see it. I don't really need to see all that much about the stock market. I'm well aware, everybody. I've kind of had my fill, to be honest. At the same time, it's very good, of course, to be aware. But I mean, this is something obviously we have a real vested interest in because we're doing our own show, of course, but we'll also be attending a lot of these shows come Mania weekend, as are going to be a lot of our listeners. So, nothing's going to change, I would say, unless the city of Tampa wills it so, or the government wills it so. And I don't know. It's 4 weeks away. Anything can happen in that time.
Well, looking among the many cancellations and things that were affected on Monday, they announced in Dublin that their St. Patrick's Day parade is being canceled coming up. And I guess if you were AEW right now, would you be comfortable in Jon Moxley and Pac going over there this weekend for Scrapper Mania, flying into the country?
That's a question really, I think for them that I'm not really qualified to answer. I would assume if it was just simply two people performing at that show, I would think the answers would be fine, would be yes.
This is a relatively small, this isn't, you're talking about large public gatherings. I mean, Scrapper Mania would not be it, but yeah, I guess you're just looking, if you're AEW, do you even want to take that risk? I guess that would be something that I would imagine that discussion might be happening.
Well, let's forget even like Scrapper Mania, but like shows, weekly shows, a Raw or a Dynamite or, any sort of large public gathering, even on this side of the world. I mean, events are being canceled, everywhere, but, including things that are taking place in North America now. How much are they looking at their own weekly schedule where you have very large gatherings of people attending your shows every single week? And how much of all that is in jeopardy?
There was just a flight that came in to Toronto from Germany, and someone they're telling people to put themselves, essentially self-isolate themselves because someone may have been affected. Oh yeah, it's just, absolutely. I mean, we could go through dozens and dozens of these stories.
The whole country of Italy is on lockdown, man.
Italy is on lockdown right now. All sporting events canceled. It's you know what I found out? This is crazy that no one had pointed this out until now. Are you aware that there's a beer that shares the same name as this virus?
I had no idea. Wow.
I didn't even put two and two together. I can't believe like the fresh content that people are getting out of this issue.
Yeah. So there's that. That is definitely one of the terrible side effects of social media. But the other, it is. I would say, on the other hand, I would say like kind of having so much like access to information that's out there right now. Ultimately, I think is good because I think a lot of people are very much more aware of how to properly wash your hands, what precautions to actually take, and I hope people are taking it seriously. Because I would say
minimum 20 seconds, everyone.
Minimum 20 seconds. Cough into your sleeve. Stay at home if you're sick. It's all good. You won't be missed at work, I'm sure. So
that's one of the stigmas that I think has really evolved significantly over the past 10 years is that it used to be, I was in like work environments where it always used to be, people that would show up to work sick, like they're doing like this unbelievable sacrifice by coming to work while they're sick.
You're finishing the match.
Everyone's pissed at you that you're showing up because you're putting me at risk of getting sick. Stay the fuck at home and get better and come back in 2 days so that you don't take down half the office.
Yeah, I would say that's especially true right now. And when I think, any sort of common cold or any sort of allergy resulting in any sort of sneeze has anybody in a nearby distance on alert. So I don't know. I would hope employers are a lot more lenient about that these days. But you and I are kind of lucky in that we can kind of work from home. And do the show even via Skype.
Yeah, I can just stay in this bunker here. Just
you got your toilet paper stocked up?
I'm ready. I'm ready for anything.
Okay. Yeah. I
got a Joe Louis, and
it's still there.
I didn't eat it. It's actually in the fridge right now.
You could throw it out, John. It's fine.
No. I'm going to preserve it.
No, it's probably bad by now. But I didn't realize this, but Joe Louis is a Canadian thing.
They were really popular when I was a kid, and they've never gone away. But they were certainly like the popular thing in elementary school to like bring to. If someone pulled one of those out for their snack, it's like, oh damn, you won the lottery.
Well, I thought they were like available in America too. Maybe they are, but I guess they might not be as popular. I guess in the U.S. they have like Twinkies and Ding Dongs.
Yeah, it's hardly any kind of delicacy. It's pretty
Joe Louis way over either of those two.
I mean, it's got a nice little compact shape to it. I mean, it looks like a hamburger, crunch. But it's chocolate.
It's magnificent. It's next to Tim Hortons, I would say maybe our greatest invention.
When was the last time you had one?
Jeez, I don't know. Probably 10 years.
Oh, okay. So this is
my birthday is coming up, John. So
I know. I wish we had a pay-per-view this weekend.
How did you spend your day?
I mean, I worked all day, and then went out with my wife tonight, and then got home in time because there was a big Riddick Moss title match that we had to cover. So I had to cut my evening short to watch Raw, but that was fine.
I feel terrible. We should have given you the night off, man.
No, not at all. It's Monday. It's a day that we work. Do you have plans for your birthday?
Yeah, I'll be celebrating your birthday.
Oh yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, it's kind of I guess Way's coming over to my place this week.
Yeah, John's having a little.
But what about your actual birthday? Your actual birthday is not the day I'm having my thing.
Right? Yeah. No, you've graciously given me the weekend off.
Yes.
So I don't know. I don't really have many plans these days. I'm just more into like keeping it low key. We'll probably just stay in. Maybe dinner with my family, and honestly, not really looking to do much else. I especially now I really just like staying at home.
I think I'm gonna hit like one of those. Like now I feel 40 is no longer like this frightening number to hit. It's now kind of like it's 40. You know what I mean? But It's like we're closing in on it. You know what I mean? We're an Olympic cycle away.
So I mean, because I agree with you. It's the same way for me. Like I think it happens anytime you pass that threshold. Like 30 when you're 20 feels like it's a long ways away. And you get to like 29, it's like, okay. At least for me, it was like whatever. Like I feel like 29 is already 30. By the time you're 30, it's like, man, 40 feels like such a long ways away. But then like, I don't know, you get to your mid 30s and it's like 40 is just like, it's just kind of there. But like when you turn 50, how do you think that you'll feel then?
By that point, I'm sure there will be part of me that will be looking at 50, probably just bracing for it the same way I am 40, and I'll probably have the same explanation. See, I look at it the other way as well. Like the reverse effect is that, you do the math going backwards. Like how long do you think you're going to live until? Like give or take. What do you think is a reasonable estimate of how long you're going to last, Way? Like are you
I don't know.
Of the mindset you're going to hit 75? Like that's a target. That's a reasonable target. You stay healthy.
I would hope so. Yeah.
So if you say 75, like you're looking at that's 39 years from now.
Yeah.
So you're not even at the midpoint yet.
And
And really, when you look at it, like I don't look at my life that I've lived, like yes, physically I've been on this planet for 36 years, but what are really the first 9 or 10? Like that's really, if you were to list off the major achievements in your life from 0 to 10, you're not even filling up half a page. It's very minimal. You don't really start living till, I would say, 11, 12, that's when the development starts, and then 13 you're off to the races, and that's like, okay, it's go time. So really,
it's almost like a draft, your first 10 years of your life. It's like almost like a test run.
It's a warm-up, yes. It's,
stretching.
It's the stretching period, and then you're off to run and discover yourself.
So what are you saying? Like
I'm saying that I'm pretty much.
So you're saying you're turning.
I'm like
26.
24. That's how old I am, really. Like that's how I look at it.
Well, I think that's a good mentality to have. That'll keep you young. My opinion is that maybe 50 might be a big deal, but then after that, they're all just whatever, right? Like after 50, like once you're in the category of old, I mean that's it. Like you could be 50 or 70. To me, it would be no difference.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what my major changes will be like. Like think about what you were like at 26 versus 36. I think I'm completely different. Like let's be honest, your 20s, you're an idiot.
You know what? We actually have plenty of podcasts where we have audio recording of you at 26, video recording of you at 26 even. So
I said, like I was an idiot in my 20s.
Yeah, you were wearing probably wearing flame shoes. You had a wallet chain, spiked blonde hair, rapping. and I would say you've definitely gone through a metamorphosis.
How about you? I think you have made a lot of adjustments yourself.
No, I would say I'm pretty similar.
I think you've made alterations over the years.
In what way?
I think like you've grown into like this wise individual. Like you're kind of like a Yoda.
And what was I like at 26?
I mean, I've always thought of you as kind of a wise individual, but you have more credibility now to me in terms of when you have something wise to say. Like sometimes I'll be the one that's always, I'll have some issue that I'm dealing with, and then you can just you give me like one sentence. That's all. It's like, oh yeah, that's a good point. Problem solved.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. So cool. Okay. Thanks, man.
I think this has been a good show. I think we should just
stop. Yeah.
Owens got hit with the stomp. Man's gonna die at WrestleMania. That was our build up for WrestleMania. Later this week, just a few notes for members of the Post Wrestling Cafe. On Tuesday night, it is the granddaddy of them all. It is the MCU review of Avengers Infinity War, and we are going to be bringing together the Power Stone. No, wait, Way would be the Mind Stone. Brent is bringing the Power Stone. And me, I'm going to be the Reality Stone because I'm going to be trying to make sense of this whole thing.
See, I would say I would have said Time Stone because you're so good with dates.
Okay, right. So if I'm not happy with the podcast, I will just Thanos this thing and we'll go back and correct course.
You can do that, yeah.
Yeah, that is the coolest stone, the Time Stone, is it not?
I would say so, yeah. I mean, Reality is pretty cool too, I would say. But yeah, cool. Okay.
That's coming up on Tuesday night. All Cafe members will get that show. Also on Thursday, we're going to be joined by Benno on the Cafe Hangout. That's live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, along with your phone calls. And we'll be chatting many subjects on the Cafe Hangout this week. And as Way noted, it will be me solo this Saturday with Rewind to SmackDown. And then we're throwing you a bonus show on Sunday as myself and Mike Murray are going to review the ROH pay-per-view that's going down on Friday night. And if we have the time, we'll go through the past versus present show that's happening on Saturday night. So look out for that this coming weekend, along with Thunderstruck. It is the final countdown that we are on to for Thunderstruck. 5 more shows remain, and the countdown this Sunday includes Jushin Thunder Liger and Koji Kanemoto with Jojo Remy, our close personal longtime friend, who is going to be joining WH Park to review that match from February of 1998. A perfect week to say, Post Wrestling, I listen to those guys.
Who says that?
Everybody after this week.
Okay.
Every Koji Kanemoto fan out there that also has an affinity for Infinity War.
Wow. Wonderfully done.
So check all of that out at postwrestling.com. Wade, do you know of any great live Q&A shows that are happening right before people want to go watch wrestling for 7 hours on Sunday, April the 5th? World issues aside.
Well, of course I do, John, and that'll be the Post Wrestling Live in Tampa Q&A, which takes place at 12 o'clock at the Art Institute of Tampa. Listen, everybody, if by this point you're going to Tampa for WrestleMania, you got to be all in. Just like John and I are, we're committing to this thing, okay? Unless you hear from Donald Trump himself, this thing is not taking place. WrestleMania is canceled. The whole city is evacuated. Okay, then we're out of there. But until that happens, we'll be right there at the Art Institute of Tampa, doing a Q&A, live meet and greet, VIP lunch for all you guys, parking spaces. So we're in it. We're in it.
Parking spaces for everyone with a VIP ticket. Parking for the entire day, minutes away from Raymond James Stadium. There's no one else that is going to offer you a parking spot and lunch together. Like those two things, just that doesn't come with your typical wrestling event, does it?
Not that I know of, yeah. Unless like Spring Break's got a crazy deal, but yeah.
All of that is going down Sunday, April the 5th, postwrestling.com/live. LIVE. Go pick up your tickets. We're hoping to see many of you down there. And We will be doing a meet and greet. We will be sanitary in interactions.
I'm thinking instead of handshakes, we fist everybody.
Wow. A live fisting.
Maybe we can try to set a world record for biggest fisting.
The largest, we will be the 2001 SmackDown set of fisting.
Damn, all the fists coming together to make one big fist?
One giant fist.
That sounds like quite the task, but I'm up for it.
All right. Sunday, April 5th. Check it out. Let's go on to some news items. A few things coming out of the weekend. I would say the story that was talked about the most on Monday was the situation involving David Starr and WXW. He was putting his career in WXW on the line against their unified champion, Bobby Guns, lost the match, and afterwards gave a farewell speech to the fans at WXW. And then after the fact, he was on Twitter and said that he was not going to go on the details on this particular platform. He said, freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequences, and this mutual decision was one that neither of us wanted to make. I love WXW and always will. So it was never flat out stated that this is a WWE related issue, but people are aware that, WXW and WWE, they do have a relationship, and many have jumped to the conclusion that this has forced David Starr out of WXW. And, he has kind of alluded to problems like this. I think if you go back and listen to the interview that Jamesy did with him, he didn't state any promotions by name, but he did allude to, one company saying that you are one step away from being out of here. And I guess, what are your thoughts on this? And, for David Starr, who is this very unique commodity, I have no doubt that he is going to use this to just further kind of enhance that image as the guy that is truly independent and outside of mainstream wrestling, but certainly didn't want to denigrate WXW on the way out here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is it kind of sucks because from all accounts it sounds like the man had a great relationship and a great run with WXW, and probably sucks that he won't be able to wrestle in front of that audience for quite some time. But at the same time, I think for his character, this is the best thing that could have ever happened to him. Now you have I feel like that tweet pretty much says as much as he possibly could have to confirm things than besides actually doing it itself. But for the type of
he's walking a line too that sorry to interrupt, but he's walking this line too where you can see he does have respect for these guys in WXW and probably understands the position that he's in, but to completely ignore the reasons, that doesn't do him any good either, because I think that, the fact that it's somewhat, people are putting the pieces together, as we said, that kind of goes to this guy's appeal to people, and it benefits him for that story to be out there.
It makes him, a commodity that, has this sort of edge, he's banned from all these places attached to him. And I think anywhere he goes will receive a certain level of attention. Do you think this will extend to OTT?
I don't. I think that OTT, I see as something that, they have built everything around this guy. He's got the match with Moxley this week. Just going back to the WXW side of things, and of course he hasn't been booked by Progress as well. That if we were to see those companies pop up on the WWE network, this is a guy who has literally tweeted out in the past advocating for people to cancel their network subscriptions to go support independent wrestling and independent wrestling services. Do you think that ultimately this was? Everyone has expected those companies to eventually end up on the network. Do you think that this separation was inevitable, that David Starr was not going to want to be featured on the WWE network if that's where things were heading?
It's very possible. Absolutely. Yeah. And I could understand it from both sides. If you're WWE faced with like the possibility of having this guy on your channel who's talked all this shit about your company, I can understand why they wouldn't want them. I can see why David Starr wouldn't want to be associated with the network either, or WWE. And I can see WXW, their difficulty of being caught in between this whole thing. So I understand it from all sides, really. And maybe this was just something that was inevitable.
Yeah, that seems to be like WXW. They, if they want to maintain a relationship with WWE, like this is someone that is, going to be very difficult to manage that. And I think that, they're looking at it from the point of view that us being attached to WWE is of greater good to the longevity of our company and being able to run shows and, make sure a whole roster here can have regular work. And we'll see ultimately like what happens with WWE and WXW. But, certainly that's been, out there in terms of rumored content to be added to the network. But it's a very interesting story to look at. And with David Starr, like WXW is a major company over there in Germany. And it's one less company that he has to work with. And, it seems that he is going to have options for him. But in terms of, regular, big time independent promotions, it's really two less now that he has.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll see if he at some point goes more into this. I would think at some point he'll probably address this further, but it seems right now that they're not really going into it. And even after the show, when WXW representatives, they do these press conferences with members of the media, and they were kind of pushed on like what this means, that it was a mutual decision and they were really not going into it at all regarding David Starr. So it seems like they're just trying to get through this weekend and not stir things anymore, even though people are going to be curious as to like why such a big commodity like David Starr is on his way out. So I'm sure they'll have more of this on the next episode of British Wrestling Experience. Benno was at the 16 Karat Gold weekend, and he'll be on the Hangout with us, so we'll probably go into this more on Thursday as well. A story we didn't get to on Sunday night involves Scott Steiner. He was backstage at the Impact event over the weekend in Atlanta, and this was on Friday night, and he was backstage and collapsed. This was first reported by Sean Ross Sapp, and then later in the night we saw Tommy Dreamer, Scott D'Amore, writing about this on Twitter, noting that they were at the hospital with Steiner. Mike Johnson reported that Saturday he was set to undergo a heart procedure, and afterward, Tommy Dreamer had said he is expected to make a complete recovery, and luckily, it seems like he escaped what could have been a really, really bad deal, worse than it ended up being. But nonetheless, Scott Steiner, you would have to wonder if this is someone you'd be comfortable putting in your ring at this point, knowing that there's a heart issue, and this is where you look at company or states that are that commission pro wrestling and that are overseeing this, that you want to make sure guys are capable of doing physicality at wrestling shows. And Scott Steiner, that would seem to be something that you'd be certainly cautious of if he ultimately can come back from something like this.
Absolutely. If he had been injured, I think if he was under WWE contract and he suffered this, I think it would be pretty clear that I would doubt that he would ever be wrestling inside a ring again, at least under WWE. But with him kind of being outside of that system and perhaps wrestling with a lot more independence, it's a little less sure that he won't step back in the ring. No matter the case, I hope he fully recovers first and gets all his appropriate checks and is just careful. I mean, I feel like Scott Steiner at this point doesn't even need to necessarily wrestle in order to his appeal isn't necessarily just him wrestling. It's him cutting the promos and being the character and looking the way that he does. And I think the world would be fine with that.
Yeah, I'd be very, very nervous about booking this guy wrestling after, they should take this as like he was extremely lucky that if he comes out of this and,
lucky that he was at a TV taping with paramedics.
Absolutely. Like, this guy could have been driving to a show. He could have been in numerous places that would not have been equipped to handle something that, time was certainly an important factor here to being able to get him to a hospital and the urgent care necessary. Like, this certainly could have been way worse than it appears to have been. AEW has added shows for New Orleans, Louisiana at the UNO Lakefront Center. That'll be May the 6th, and then Rio Rancho, New Mexico the following week. The New Orleans show, that's where ROH did their Supercard of Honor show 2 years ago, and that's where the big Cody-Kenny Omega match took place. And they did 6,100 people at that show that you and I attended.
6,100, yes. Yeah. That was a memorable week.
Very memorable one, and that was totally Cody and Kenny Omega. Like, that was one of the big matches of the weekend, and I just remember being so surprised they didn't put that match on last. And it was like that audience was just emotionally spent after that match, and they still had the main event to go, which was Marty Scurll, Dalton Castle that night. But it was, certainly where you could see back in 2018, like the Elite being able to draw a very big show, because I looked at that match as, the key to drawing that number that night at Supercard of Honor.
See, I wonder if they play with that. I wonder if they make reference to that match as part of like AEW canon, because I feel like there's a lot of fan service done for people for fans of theirs who have, seen all of their matches. And I would certainly rank that one as like, one of the more memorable ones of that whole, like, Elite's history. So, but at the same time, will they introduce it on TNT to what you would assume might be also a brand new audience? I wonder.
Unlikely. I don't know if they would reference it, but a real interesting question that I always think of is that had Chris Jericho not come to AEW, how much different what the main event picture looks like in AEW and who that top heel is. You would assume that Cody's probably in that role and not this gigantic babyface star for the company, even though some may believe he is the top heel in the company.
Sure, yeah, who knows? Who knows? I mean, part of me feels like no matter what, I think the audience was going to cheer him, given just, the real story behind him and all in. Like, he really feels like the face of sort of like that principled drive to put that show on. And I feel like he would have been cheered either way. But, I mean, yeah, they could have turned to anybody, really.
They've also announced the participants for the Blood and Guts match on March 25th. It will be the Elite, teaming up, the 5 of them, for the first time all together in one match in AEW against the Inner Circle of Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, Jake Hager, Ortiz, and Santana. And this Wednesday, they'll announce the rules for the match. And with over 2 weeks to heavily promote this was already a significant chunk of the Road to Salt Lake City video they just put out today was dedicated to just promoting Blood and Guts, with comments from Dustin and Arn Anderson. And I would certainly think that this show, I don't know what will be going up against it that night, but this certainly seems to be the show that, in the back of your head, you would have to think they are aiming to do, a big audience for. Like, I would think if this one doesn't hit 1 million, I don't know what is for Dynamite, with all of the positive buzz for them over this year of episodes of Dynamite, and this match, just the history of the match and how big it's going to be promoted. Like, this is going to be, I would say, a very big episode of Dynamite.
Yeah. That elusive 1 million, though. I wonder if it's possible with the pool, and I think with the audience kind of like really set in their ways of watching either NXT or AEW at this point. But nonetheless, I mean, that is certainly a pay-per-view level match. It is the biggest type of match I would say you could make with the format of a War Games like this. So I'm really interested to see it. I mean, I think now is a good time to do it, because who knows when you'll have like all of the Elite members technically still on the same babyface side in like, a year's time even. So why not?
How long do you think that match goes?
I think at least an hour.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, that it could take up like the whole maybe second hour of the show, depending on where they place it in the show. Like, I could see it taking up, close to, 45 to 60 minutes of television time. And I'd be very curious how the number would grow throughout that period as long as that match is going.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like there's no aversion to TNT allowing blood on the show, that you would, for this kind of match, given what its namesake is, you would have to envision that there's going to be a ton of it in this match.
Yeah.
And the final note here is that Friday on SmackDown, Paige is going to be on the show for some kind of segment involving Bayley, where she's going to confront Bayley, and Jeff Hardy will also be on the show. His first appearance on SmackDown since last April, when he vacated the tag titles with Matt, and of course has had his issues outside of the ring since then, on top of the leg injury he sustained that took him off of TV to begin with. But an interesting time of the year to be bringing Jeff Hardy back. But I guess after last week's interview on Backstage and announcing that he was cleared, that they felt like now is the time to utilize Jeff, and we'll see how he is used on Friday's show.
They must, be confident in him enough to bring him back right now, and I would assume that he's got some role at WrestleMania that might be significant.
Yeah, and I mean, he does have the court date the day after, which I guess could get postponed if there is a WrestleMania plan, but I had just assumed that they would wait for all of that stuff to be taken care of and then use Jeff post-Mania. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, if he's on TV, if they shoot an angle on Friday, then I guess it's possible that he is in the mix somehow for Mania. So we'll see with that on Friday. Onto the show we go from Washington, D.C., the Capital One Arena, the home of the first episode of Dynamite.
Wow. Cool.
Yes. This is where the debut episode took place, and we had cameras locked on the entrance to the building that were set to watch for Edge to show up. When would Edge arrive at the arena? Would he make it in time?
Yeah, you figured they would have had him there, I don't know, a few hours before.
Guess not. They were cutting it close here. Would he make it? Becky came out and started the show to address Shayna Baszler, who multiple times was identified as the cage fighter, Shayna Baszler.
Mm-hmm.
So that looks to be the moniker they're going with, and also pushing the fact that she was the first Elimination Chamber participant to eliminate all of the opponents in the match. And Becky says that the time for joking is over. They recap the Elimination Chamber match, and Becky notes how Baszler was able to take down Asuka, the woman that it took her so long herself to beat, and Shayna did it in minutes. Shayna is a world-class scumbag, a black hole of charisma, and Becky, is the bitch that runs this division, while you are a constipated-looking robot that didn't shake my hand at WrestleMania last year.
So that's in reference to something backstage?
I guess, yeah. This was just kind of thrown in there to, I guess, add some realism to their feud. Like, they really don't like each other.
Right.
This year, no one should be shaking anyone's hand.
Yeah, they should all be fisting.
She said that she pried this title from Ronda's broken hand, and Baszler has been hiding in the shadows for a year. Normal people don't beat trained killers except for me. And she's going to smash Baszler's face. And Lawler repeats that Becky isn't a bitch. She's the bitch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I thought a decent promo from Becky here. A couple good lines in there. I think they were trying really hard to make Shayna look like a threat. They're very much more framing her as sort of like the MMA fighter, much along the lines of Ronda Rousey, and how Becky said, I beat one of your kind before, essentially, and I can beat you too. I didn't think there was anything in here that really helped escalate this feud to any sort of significant degree, but I thought it was a decent promo.
Yeah, it's just, these two strong forces that are meeting at WrestleMania. And this is Baszler's big opportunity at the championship, and Becky facing her most dangerous opponent. And that was pretty much it. There was no Shayna Baszler on the show. They just limited it to this promo. And I think that now that we have the match that, from the Royal Rumble until now, Becky's kind of just been floating around and having to wait. And she's felt like a distant priority in this build up to WrestleMania. So now we have 4 weeks to build up this match. There's the solid direction. And I think that this version of Becky Lynch is the strongest, rather than, showing up with a crown on her head to hang out on commentary.
I didn't mind the crown. I thought she looked great, but sure.
Rey Mysterio versus Angel Garza. And early on, they go to a break. And, man, were you watching this on Sportsnet? Jeff Merrick's podcast getting all the advertising love here on Sportsnet. This thing was just full of ads on tonight's show.
Like the lower crawl, you mean?
No, actual commercials.
Oh, I skipped through the commercials.
Oh, you got to stick around for the commercials. Garza ends up setting up Ray for the 619, and he gets caught. And then Garza goes to the floor, gets hit with the sliding splash by Ray, and they had a very good match here, and it was really just built around the 619, with both attempting it at different times. Garza ducked the 619, super kicking Ray, and then as he went for the destroyer, Garza caught him, but a tilt-a-whirl set up Garza, and finally, Ray hit the 619 and went for the springboard, and it was almost like this elbow drop / splash that he hit him with and won the match in 9 minutes.
Very good match from these two. You know, I thought the crowd was very engaged throughout this whole thing. Any combination of these four, between these two and Andrade and Humberto, are great for TV. Certainly Ray, you know, after a month off, doesn't really feel as hot as he did at the height of last year or for the Brock feud. But I think the idea right now is to give that exposure to the other three, and I think it's been successful, you know, considering especially here with Angel Garza, somebody who might have not been have been scheduled to be a part of this whole thing at all. The fact that I think over the past month he's managed to, I think, establish himself pretty well on TV has been a real benefit.
Yeah, no step forward in terms of any kind of indication of what the this program is going to lead to at WrestleMania. Just kind of a good match. That was pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
Then Kevin Owens arrived, and this was from earlier in the night where he ran into AOP, Murphy, and Rollins eating popcorn. And Owens realizes he's outnumbered, so he just launches his luggage and gets beaten down by all of them when we had fellow Canadian Lance Storm coming to the rescue, along with Sanjay Dutt. And they just broke this up with Owens, who just got the shit beat out of him multiple times. This was a bad day for Kevin Owens.
It's a dangerous place to work, evidently.
Very. They're really hyping up Steve Austin's appearance for next week, so it seemed like the success of building up John Cena's return, they're looking to do the same thing on Raw with Austin. And Tom Phillips making sure everyone gets the joke that next week it's 316 Day, and then explaining because it's March 16th next week. He had to have explained this at least like 2 or 3 times on this show, that it's March 16th. And every time Lawler's like, I got it. I see what you did there.
Sure.
They re-aired the video package with Rhea Ripley inside Raymond James Stadium that they aired on NXT last week, which I was glad they re-aired because it was a really good piece here on Ripley.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I think the idea behind this whole thing, I know, is partly to get Charlotte onto NXT to help that show, but I think it's also to help expose Rhea Ripley to a bigger audience on Raw. And a video like this certainly would be the most beneficial thing you can do for her without actually having her be there. It told kind of like her, I mean, shit, like we were talking about ages earlier, like made me feel old seeing this person in her youth as a child, which was probably like 2008, like when she was dreaming about one day being on this stage. Like she couldn't have been more than I don't know, 10 years ago, if that.
Yeah, really. It was, which one? I think it was Ripley who had stated that the match that got her into wrestling was Triple H and Ric Flair in 2005.
How old was she?
I think she was born like 92 is my guess. I think.
Rhea Ripley.
Let's look at Ripley. Dude, 1996. October 11th, 96. Jesus Christ. So she would have been 9 years old seeing Triple H and Ric Flair in the middle of their feud. Oh, my goodness.
So that Ruthless Aggression documentary for her is basically like
her childhood memories.
Yeah, that's like her.
It would predate her fandom.
Wow.
In 2002. Wow. She would have been like 6 years old in the SmackDown 6 era.
Yeah, when Shawn Michaels achieved his boyhood dream, was she even born?
No, she was not born yet. She was born that fall. After that, Charlotte came out and said Ripley will never be her because there's only one Charlotte Flair. You cannot debate that argument.
I mean, somebody else out there could be named Charlotte Flair. I'm sure. You look in the phone book. Google search.
She said that everyone thinks Ripley is going to be the next big thing, but the hype is not going to last. And there's a big difference between walking around in an empty stadium, sharing your dreams, and inside of one with 90,000 people where you'll be humbled. So she clearly got a bit of the Hulk Hogan form of promotion here. 90,000 people we're now expecting at Raymond James Stadium, which I think is absolutely, literally impossible in this size venue. But,
maybe she thinks this was taking place in Dallas or another arena. The Silverdome.
Maybe she's, maybe could have been.
Yeah.
Then Rhea comes out and Flair tells her this is not NXT and Ripley is excused. So then Ripley delivered this weird looking strike. It was almost like this punch that was delivered like a chop to her neck. And Charlotte goes down, but she's not selling that this has hurt her. She's more so, it's like
she can't believe it.
She's like amused by this. And then they just smile at each other and Rhea leaves and they just continue to laugh.
Yes. To me, this felt like a week 1 interaction of the build rather than like, what is this now? Week 7 or something at this point?
This was WEAK.
Yes. Thank you. I feel like it's certainly much like you said about Becky and Shayna. Like this feud, despite the fact that I think it's had the longest run of any of the female championship feuds, it still feels like it's been standing in place because of the timing of it all. All the stuff with Belair, of course, having to put this one on hold. And then this week, it just feels like now that I guess Elimination Chamber is over, they can really start the build. And that's why I feel like this felt like another chapter 1. Video was good. The in-ring did very little to elevate my interest again. But I wasn't really a big fan of Charlotte's promo either. I found it, to be another rather generic and, without substance or storyline type of promo. Like, you'll never be me. You're going to be humbled by the queen. It's just like, to me, a lot of words that don't really say a whole lot.
It seems like the surface level is, okay, it's someone from NXT and it's someone from Raw. We've had Rhea show up on Raw. We've had Charlotte show up on NXT. We've had Charlotte wrestle on NXT. And it's, all right, it's the, I like some of the contents of the video, like the comparisons to Charlotte early in her career. Like there's some stuff there. And I think and as a match, I think it's a really interesting one for them to have. It just, to me, they haven't reached the next level of this feud beyond like just, again, the surface stuff that they've hit all of the basics of this program. So now I think people are looking for, okay, what's next that's going to make people really emotionally invested in this match on what's going to be a very long show.
I feel like they haven't necessarily like made the hook really of the match like feel that apparent yet. I think the video probably like did the best job of it. I feel like Charlotte's promo on NXT a couple weeks back did a pretty decent job of it, of how like, she was talking about how she made that title, and for somebody to walk on her show right now holding the same title that she made famous, like that to me was a promo that I think was full of a lot more substance than what we got here, which was just like generic, like I'm the queen, I'm gonna humble you, you're gonna bow down to me, like that, like kind of mindless drivel. But that's also the problem when you have like so many weeks of TV to fill without like the task of overwriting it, which can also be bad. How much can they really say? Yeah,
I mean, you run into the problem, and then all of a sudden, someone's like running you over with a car, and
that's
then we're into that territory.
It's always the example. Yeah.
Randy Orton was hiding out in this smoke-filled room that had all of these tables stacked up against the wall. And he's just standing in this room, and was apparently standing in this room for hours.
Yeah, they couldn't get him a seat. It was also meticulously like lit.
It was amazing. And he even got into his gear for this. Bobby Lashley and Zack Ryder. The high point of the match was that they announced Lana was doing a movie with Bruce Willis, and Lashley won in 1:21 with the Dominator.
Yes.
Which is not a move exclusive for Shayna.
Yeah. Everybody kind of does a version of this Stormbreaker thing now, don't they? This is like pretty quick, nothing TV match to, I guess, rehab Lashley coming off of the past few weeks. Do you have any indication what he might be doing, or whether or not he'll even have an actual match at WrestleMania?
I think that he will be demanding that he will be the one to beat in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. That would be where I would envision Lashley after this year, of where he ends up.
Likewise, if there was going to be any program, it would have been, I guess, something involving Rusev, and they've totally dropped that. So maybe they'll meet each other in the Battle Royal.
Aleister Black is in his room, and he's all set to deliver what I could only imagine would have been sincere birthday wishes. And he was interrupted by Seth Rollins and Murphy, who walked into the room, and they want Aleister by his side to join the movement.
Is that the name?
That's what he referred to it as. And he's also, Seth has tweeted this term as well.
Oh,
yes.
God. I don't know if that's a great name to name your stable.
Yeah, they can come out to, they like to move it. No. He turns them down. He's not going to join the movement. And Rollins says, you're either with us, the movement, or you're against the movement. And Black says that you did knock on the right door, and I accept. And we're going to get a match with Seth Rollins and Aleister Black later in the program.
Yeah, that's right. Simple build to a match on TV.
Very simple, yes. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? Aleister.
Will you join my movement? No? Okay,
Nope.
Let's fight.
Let's fight, you bitch. Eric Rowan, Drew McIntyre. We had the cage. It was back. It's still hidden. I don't know why. Why is he hiding it again?
Oh, I mean, the spider doesn't like light.
Does he not understand how cable works? Like what that machine was that was rolling on that footage?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's less out of secrecy, and maybe just more so to protect the beautiful pet that rests inside that cage.
His opponent was Drew McIntyre. Early on, Drew avoids the Iron Claw. They go to the floor. Rowan takes a belly-to-belly on the floor. That looked fun. And then Drew grabs this cage, puts it on the floor, grabs the metal steps, and he smashes this cage.
He smashes, presumably the spider that's inside this cage as well.
That mechanical toy spider that did nothing wrong to anybody. I thought Drew was like, what a dick.
Yeah, fuck that guy. He's a murderer, man.
Like, have your problems with Eric Rowan, this guy that's kept this thing in a cage hidden from the world. But what did this poor animal pet do to anybody?
Absolutely. Like, you don't like the man, attack the man. Why attack the pet that belongs to the guy? I absolutely felt sympathy for Rowan here. Imagine if instead of a spider, this was his dog. And Drew McIntyre takes this dog, this little cute little pug chihuahua in this cage, and just smashes it with the steel steps. What a monster this man is.
It's like this guy's pet. And to be quite honest, like what trait of Eric Rowan is like this that you would be disliking this individual? Like he wins his matches. He's very competitive, and he's got a pet. He's got like a security blanket in this spider.
Well, we're kind of half joking, but I'm actually really not. Like, this has been part of my problem with this Drew push thus far. There have been weeks, I would say like 75% of the time, the what they do with him has been fantastic, especially lately. But then some weeks, he just comes across looking like a total bully because he just like goes way too far for these guys that have done really nothing terrible to him. I felt sympathy for Mojo when you just like treated him like shit, completely neglected him, did not respect him as an opponent, and just killed him. But this one even more so. Like Rowan, he doesn't even have a personal issue with him. You are taking part in a fair, competitive sporting event, and the man's best friend ended up being murdered on live TV. This poor guy.
Well, do you think this was the end of the cage? Like this spider has now been killed and the cage is gone now after this?
I would think so. Yeah, unless it's...
Like that seemed to be the only purpose of this, was to eliminate this cage, so Eric,
well, I guess once the mystery's gone, really, what is there? I guess he'll have to get a new animal.
I mean, that reveal was really well done last week. I mean, what a build-up for those 4 months.
Oh, yeah. Did you see the quarter hour? Yeah, it was huge. But now I really want to see Rowan get his revenge.
WrestleMania. He should come out and cost them the match.
He should come out, and if Drew's got any sort of pet at home, I don't know, man. I feel bad for that guy.
Gets a poisonous tarantula and puts it on top of Drew, and it bites him.
Wow.
They recapped the Orton and Beth Phoenix segment from last week, and this was including family photos of Randy and videos of the family man that Edge helped to foster.
All right.
The Kabuki Warriors came out, and this was the best promo of the year. These two were just laughing and cut this maniacal promo. Then all of a sudden, they just yell, "Kabuki Warriors!" They continue to scream at the fans. Kyrie then screeches, "Elimination Chamber," like she's Lenny Hart, and then asks if Asuka is how she's feeling. Asuka says, "It's okay." Kyrie just screams. It's like completely indecipherable what she's saying, but you can tell she's alluding to the wrist being injured of Asuka. And Asuka says, "I want to beat someone." And they name Alexa Bliss, who they call a mean girl. I don't know what they were saying, but I totally understood what they were trying to get across. And I thought this is great.
You understood enough. I mean, you know, they speak a totally different language. And I mean, when they do speak English, it's like, it's sometimes kind of hard to hear, but I mean, I think most would understand enough. And beyond that, the delivery itself is so captivating. Like, I absolutely thought this was a better promo than what I heard from Charlotte earlier on this show. It felt unique, and it felt like it didn't feel like somebody just reading off of a script.
Yeah, it's just like it's all in the delivery. That you can, okay, this is to convey we're pissed about last night, and now we want revenge.
Yeah, certainly. I think week by week they're really figuring it out, and yeah, it's working.
So it's the Kabuki Warriors against Natalya and Liv Morgan. Natalya's got her arm taped up. Liv is favoring her neck, selling the attack from the Elimination Chamber the night prior, and they worked over Natalya's arm for quite a while. Ruby Riott came out, and then later on in the match, Sarah Logan came out. Natalya was able to escape a guillotine, and then Sarah Logan and Ruby Riott start brawling as they go to a commercial break, and then Liv hits a high cross onto both women on the floor, but in doing so, Natalya has no one to tag when she finally makes her way to the corner. Natalya is able to apply the sharpshooter onto Kyrie when Asuka breaks it with a head kick, and she's the legal woman and ends up pinning Natalya at 10:55. The Kabuki Warriors win.
Yes, that's right. Yep. I thought Liv looked like a real idiot here. Like, just abandoning her partner like that? Why? Because
she saw her rival, Ruby Riott, and she just let her emotion get the best of her.
She could have done that in the whole match.
Well,
after the match, even?
She crossed the imaginary line when she was close, and she said, "You know what? This is time for a cross body." Haven't you ever had that feeling? Been in a mall, and you've seen your enemy on the first floor, and you've just wanted to dive off?
I've never been in that situation where I've had the higher ground on two people that I really wanted to fight, but I guess I could see the appeal. You know, it's like it'd be like a ball pit at McDonald's. So yeah, this continues.
It does continue, yes. The OC came out, and AJ cut his big promo. Lawler, at the beginning, so astute, he said, "He's upset. You can tell." And yes, AJ was upset. He said, "The Undertaker has stuck his nose into his business twice and taken moments away from me including stealing a beautiful trophy and costing me a match last night. He said 3 years ago, he watched The Undertaker get beat by Roman Reigns, fold his jacket, and leave his hat in the ring. And he probably should have called it a day after he got beat by Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. He said it was a beautiful and powerful moment, and The Undertaker ruined it when he came back to WWE, and it's going to cost him because I want The Undertaker at WrestleMania. This thing, this is a pretty big, The Undertaker getting challenged to WrestleMania is usually a guaranteed big pop. But this crowd, whether it was, just a formality that they knew this match was coming, certainly didn't react to it in a big way. So AJ continued. He said 10 to 15 years ago, he may have been hesitant to call out The Undertaker, but he doesn't see him as a mythical monster. He's a broken down man named Mark Calloway, who should have retired 10 years ago in his prime, and he thinks it's all his wife, Michelle, who keeps having him come back. They're married, if you didn't know, and she plays The Undertaker like a fiddle. He gets hurt every time he steps into the ring. Michelle is a conniving person, and she's going to run him into the ground, and AJ's going to help her because he's going to make sure he dies in that ring at WrestleMania. I will take his soul. He said that he's lost his pride and mystique. He is a broken down man that the people don't give a damn about, and I will literally put the nail in his coffin.
Yeah. A very fiery, very personal promo here from AJ. Dipping a little bit into reality, using his real name, making mention of his wife. I thought it really caught your attention, and I liked it a lot. It was very different from, the usual fare that we get for any sort of, especially Undertaker feud. So I think it needed something that was this sort of scathing and personal, because AJ has taken losses at the hands of, due to the Undertaker's either deliberate or direct or in an indirect cause. He's taken those losses over the past, 2 weeks? So he needed something that felt personal, that made you want to see The Undertaker get revenge. And I feel like this achieved that.
This certainly was done to, elicit a response, to shock people that The Undertaker is being spoken in this way. And I was kind of torn because you're right. AJ needed a big promo to cut out the joking comedy AJ Styles that it's kind of been how he's presented up until now. So I thought the tone was right, but I also look at, the old adage that you don't just destroy your opponent in a promo, especially where I think all of these things that people bring up about The Undertaker's physical limitations and, past his prime are all things that I think the audience would begrudgingly agree with.
It's true. Yeah. Unless they were so confident that The Undertaker, the story of the match is that Taker is, like Randy the Ram. He's somebody who can still play this character. And I find that aspect really interesting, is that how will The Undertaker answer this type of promo? Now that his real life name, his real wife, and his kids are canon, part of the storyline. How does The Undertaker, and how do they explain that this guy comes out in a trench coat and all this smoke, if it's not just a character, and
does the audience, want to view The Undertaker as this guy with a wife and kids with physical deterioration? And the way this was set up, it almost calls for a Michelle McCool appearance on TV, you would think, in the lead up to this. This was as much about Michelle as it was Undertaker.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I expect it in the weeks to come. I mean, they really hit a home run with the Beth segment. So maybe, the former Divas champion wives are all going to make their returns and maybe add a bit of intrigue to this one. But we'll see.
Or Michelle waits for WrestleMania and ends the match with the faith breaker to AJ.
Ooh, there's your feud right there. Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's as natural a rivalry as Spear versus Spear, isn't it?
I mean, this has been building up for over a decade.
Certainly is long-term build, yeah. But, it makes me wonder, whether or not they'll continue with this direction of like the idea that that Mark Calloway is like the Undertaker's Earth Realm disguise. You know, it's his alter ego, like his Clark Kent or something. Like, but instead of like Clark Kent being the real thing, it's Superman that's the real thing. Like, it just in this way, the Undertaker is the real guy, and Mark Calloway is just this disguise. Huh?
I will say this for this Undertaker, you know, for a character that is so mythologized within WWE, you know, the performer, Mark Calloway, he seems to have a really comfortable, like, leeway with his character that he will, you know, it could have just been simply you build up the dead man for his match, his WrestleMania match, and you know, I would imagine feels like they need to go this direction. I don't know if it's the best idea of Undertaker, the married man with Michelle McCool, but you know, it was certainly designed to be, you know, a heated promo that was going to stun people with like the content that AJ was delivering. I just don't know if you position your older legend in such a way that, you know, you just, you know, completely call out everything that I think fans are very well aware of. It's not the case of the heel being necessarily inaccurate with some of his, you know, insults.
Certainly, yeah. It makes it really interesting because this is somebody like The Undertaker who this is being said of, and, you know, we know he's usually very protective of his storylines. I would assume gave the okay for something like this to be said about him.
Oh, certainly.
So,
it's just at the end of it, it's like Undertaker wins this match. Well, it's like, okay, AJ, you've just lost to the broken down, over the hill, aging veteran.
Well, I mean, the idea is that AJ was wrong and AJ underestimated The Undertaker.
Well, we will see what happens. Next week, they are doing a contract signing between the two. And will someone get stabbed in the hand with a pen?
We'll see, it's a 50-50 chance.
I mean, Undertaker and these contract signings for WrestleMania, they can go off the wall. So Taker and Austin on next week's show. Orton is still in his room. Charlie has detected him, but Randy has no thoughts to share when asked. Her question was literally, what are your thoughts about Edge showing up tonight? None.
Yeah.
That was it. Riddick Moss and Cedric Alexander for the 24/7 title. Riddick Moss won with a neck breaker, and they said that he has given new meaning to what it means to be 24/7 champion. There's no longer anyone chasing after him, which, if you go back to when Mojo first won this, was kind of like his whole character was that he was going to change this division and there was going to be nobody chasing after him. And it looks like they liked that idea, just not the body that was going to execute that plan. And they just have moved it on to Riddick Moss, and Mojo is right back to where he started in you know, nowhere's land.
Main event. Nowhere
Sure.
land. That's what they should call it. By the way, you know who else wrestled on main event this week?
Who is that?
Ricochet.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So
He was not even on the show tonight.
yeah. Well, he was on that one. So anyway, you know, last week was certainly a bit of a joke seeing Riddick Moss beat Ricochet, but this week it seems like they're being very serious with Ricochet, and the better he gets booked, the less bad Ricochet looks in hindsight. So I think Riddick Moss just needs to go on and maybe like beat Brock Lesnar. Ricochet will look a lot better coming out of it. So they're really trying to book this 24/7 title as like almost at this point like an IC title or like a US title, you know, treating it very seriously as a secondary belt. And they're trying, man. You know, I'll say Riddick Moss, I think it looks really good in ring. It's a belt that needs a long time to rehab, and really it's a character that I think needs a bit more.
Has this guy done one promo? Do you know one thing about Riddick Moss since he's come up onto the main roster? Other than he was a blocker.
No, I don't.
So they go to break, and we come back, and MVP is in mid-sentence in the ring, insulting Washington, D.C. That is so insignificant that they're not even a state. The crowd was like, boo!
Mm-hmm.
What an insult. He said he is transitioning from in-ring competitor to brainiac, and it's time to lead others to championship status, but he needs a solid foundation, and he's going to build it around Edge. The problem Edge has is focus, and he can lead Edge back to prominence and make him champion again. With that, Edge pulls up in the back, and he gets out of his car, and he darts towards the arena. I swear, if you go and watch this back, the man did not blink once.
Oh, he's got like the bulgy eyes. Like really, he's like the guy who was ringside watching the Brock Lesnar beat the Undertaker. He's got that face.
Like this was man. His music hits, he comes out, he grabs the microphone, and he demands that Randy Orton grow a set and come out right now. MVP says, "There you go. Your mental is off. You're not focusing on the right thing. You're embarrassing yourself." And Edge is ignoring this voice in the background. And then MVP says, "How's your wife?" And Edge turns around, spears MVP, and then Orton runs into the ring and goes to attack him. And Edge is able to hit the RKO, which I think Christian could lend him the name of his finisher to describe this.
Yeah.
Because this was not the prettiest. But
it's hard to like
the angle that he was coming at him to. It was just like the physics of executing the move at that angle was a little awkward.
I think it's really hard to like match though, like Randy Orton's RKO, and I feel like it's almost like underappreciated how snappy and explosive it is, because it's not just like a diamond cutter. It's not just like really any other cutter. It's how quick he's able to do it and how good he's been able to make it his entire career. And unfortunately, Edge coming in here and trying to do the same. I mean, I get it, obviously, because of the story, and I think it got a big reaction immediately, but didn't really look as good, didn't really look as devastating. And I also felt like it was, I kind of feel like if a guy has just tried to end your career and just attacked your wife, I don't really feel like I would retaliate by doing his wrestling move, or even like trying to sell a new submission here. Like I'd be after him with like a weapon or something that's just like a lot more blunt, like a spear. A spear would have been perfect, but to steal his wrestling move, his make-believe wrestling move at a time like this, when you're looking to just kill the guy and seek revenge for him attacking your wife, to me it kind of took like some of the severity off.
Well, I think kind of the idea, too, was that Beth got taken out with the RKO. It's this devastating move to the neck, and he's now going for Randy's neck. Maybe I'm stretching on that one. But he hits it, and then Edge grabs 2 chairs, and Orton runs away, and MVP is left there. And Edge introduced us to his arm triangle choke onto MVP. So looks like that will be added to his arsenal. And he hit an RKO to MVP on the chair and hit MVP with the concerto. The crowd chants one more time, so he does another one with Orton watching from the top of the ramp, and the segment ends with Edge running after Orton, who gets away to the back.
Yeah, crowd was really into it. I thought MVP was really good in his role. Yeah.
I thought it was a good segment. I didn't think it was at... so this is the top angle for me going into Mania, and I think they kind of bypassed like all the questions surrounding like Edge got this vicious attack where we were told that this guy might never wrestle again, and there was like it's like all the heat was now based off of what happened to Beth last week, and Edge is completely rehabilitated, and we're just going to kind of overlook the big angle that started this back after the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I almost feel like Beth last week could have like just said, "Oh, by the way, the health update, Edge is cleared," and then they could get into the physicality. Beth could be laid out, and you could have still maybe explained it. And I'm sure they will. Like, I mean, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? He was doing physicality here, so he must be cleared.
Well, that's it. It's just you kind of eliminated any of that drama or any kind of doubt, which they had tried to build up over all these weeks of why Edge was not there any longer. So, nonetheless, I think that this program is doing very well. They didn't officially announce the match yet, but that seems to be the next step in all of this. Overall, a good segment, but I wouldn't say this was like a home run like the first Edge attack or last week's segment. I think it certainly paled in comparison to those two.
Agreed.
They show clips of Paul Levesque receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Arnold Sports Festival over the weekend. And then we had taped segments involving Paul Heyman and Drew McIntyre, with Heyman listing off all the victims of Brock Lesnar over the years, and that no one has been so dominant for as long as Brock Lesnar has. And Drew, in his statement, said that everything Heyman said is true, but then Brock ran into me, and he never makes a promise he can't keep. And he promises he will claymore Brock, knock him on his ass, and pin him at WrestleMania to become WWE champion. So the babyface is guaranteeing a title win at Mania. So we have the spoiler versus the promise.
We shall see. Yeah, they were working really hard because they already worked in the footage of Drew McIntyre killing Eric Rowan's spider into this special video.
Yes, the turnaround was incredible here.
Yeah, it's one of the highlights of this build,
including the shot of the steps with the cage. I think made its way in here, didn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Charlie locates Edge. He's looking for Randy, and Charlie says, "Oh, he left the arena," and Edge just kind of stood there and was
eyes bulging,
seething. Yes, and they said he looks possessed.
Yep,
Broken Adam.
Broken Adam. Oh, I get it.
Seth Rollins, Aleister Black. Rollins comes out accompanied by Popcorn with Murphy. Each try. Seth tries to stomp. Aleister tries the Black Mass. They miss. Black gets driven into the turnbuckle, comes back, hits a quebrada. Murphy then gets knocked off the apron. Rollins capitalizes, but Black hits a head kick, bridging German when Murphy runs in for the DQ. 7.5 minutes. And then the AOP run in. It's 4-on-1. And then the Viking Raiders run in. And everyone's fighting. The Street Profits come out. Somehow in all of this, Aleister Black vanished. And it's Montez Ford calling for an 8-man tag, as it will be the Street Profits and Viking Raiders against Rollins, Murphy, and AOP. Or, for short, The Movement.
The Movement, yeah. Well, I don't know. Aleister Black just evaporated, I guess.
He just vanished in this. I don't know where the hell he went. Then they ran the promo for SmackDown this week with Paige and Jeff Hardy. What would Jeff say if Hulk Hogan suggested they team up together at WrestleMania?
I don't know what.
Terry, no. Street Pro. I'm trying here. No, 8-man tag. This thing went like 4 hours, is what it felt like.
Yeah.
Am I exaggerating? Like this
no,
to
not
me,
at all.
Nothing wrong here, but it was like
no, you're wrong, John. There was something wrong.
Yeah, like this show was done. This show was done, and this was, guys, finish the show out. We've got 30 minutes left.
It's the fact that we've seen some iteration of this multi-man tag involving the Movement and a combination of the Viking Raiders or Kevin Owens or whoever for like the past 2 months. And anytime they do it, especially at the last minute, you can, I mean, they're really relying on the fact that these guys are great wrestlers and that they'll deliver like a good wrestling match. But I'm not spending my, 10 o'clock hour on a Monday night to watch a random house show match involving 8 random guys on Raw. I have way better things to do with my life if I wasn't doing this show, of course. But it just feels really unimportant. And not to mention just the whole bait and switch of like promising this Rollins Black match, giving you maybe 5 seconds of it, and then replacing it with this. It just, it's just not good TV.
It's a weird comparison, but it goes to my point here of like wins and losses on this show. The last time, I can't speak for the man's record on Main Event. Maybe he's tearing it up. But the last time we saw Cedric Alexander on Raw, he was losing on this show. And Like, it's such a stupid argument to make. But how did this guy get a title shot tonight? And the answer, people are laughing at me bringing that up because that's, like, no one thinks like that when you're watching Raw. Because wins and losses mean nothing. So if you're going to sit down for 23 minutes and 44 seconds and it doesn't matter who wins or loses, you're checked out. You're completely checked out when wins and losses mean nothing. And you can just, like, what was in it for the winner here? Nothing. And if a win doesn't matter, then there's no engagement here.
Yeah.
So they had the heat on. They just took turns. First, it was Eric, who was beaten down for an eternity. Then he made the tag to Montez Ford. Ford fires up. He's going crazy. They go to commercial. They come back. Ford's just getting pounded on in the corner, and the crowd is sitting on their hands. Eventually, everyone is in. They're taking their turns. Ford hits his big splash off the top, which they're calling from the heavens. Murphy makes the save, so Rollins is saved. And then Ford dives onto everyone in the ring, comes in, and gets hit with the stomp. And Rollins wins, pins it for winning it for his team. 23 minutes and 44 seconds. Afterwards, Kevin Owens shows up, attacks Rollins, stuns Akam. Razor gets sent to the floor. He stuns Murphy, but then Rollins hits him with the stomp, hits Owens with a second stomp, and then hits Owens with a third stomp. So it was not a great night to be Kevin Owens, and that's how the show ended, with Seth Rollins and the movement declaring victory over Kevin Owens.
Match really picked up with the closing sequence at the end, as you can always count on these guys to do. Ford continues to be a featured player on Raw. Spectacular looking moves, great charisma, of course. But man, like, from the moment this match was put out there, I thought these 8 were pretty much put out there to fail. Like, these matches are just so meaningless. And how many of them can we get to just close out this, like, long drawn out Raw? They're often decent matches, but they just don't advance the story at all. They're really, at this point, they feel like time filler.
So that's it. And, last week we had that promo from Seth Rollins about, I will face you, Owens. You name the time, the place, and the stipulation. Like, why would Kevin Owens, who has had a week, not be ready with an answer?
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
The babyface should be the one that he has been granted the chance at his rival. And you had nothing referencing that tonight either. So no real movement there. I just thought, like, the last 40 minutes of this show just felt like it was largely just filling in that third. Like, I could see this third hour really decreasing significantly, which I don't disagree with the placement. Like, Edge was the big thing on the show, and I think it was smarter to do it at 10 o'clock as opposed to, right before the show ends, where you're just fighting to keep people.
Then why did they do the Beth Orton thing last week at the end?
Well, I guess last week they had much more faith in them sticking around for that particular segment. But yeah, to me, it was like once Edge came out, that was it. And you had nothing even announced after. You had the Rollins-Aleister Black match, but that's going into the ring at like 10:15. It's like, what is going to fill out this third hour? And it's this impromptu 8-man that starts and goes 23 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that was Raw. How did you feel about the show overall?
I didn't like it as much this week, and maybe it's just the last segment really kind of putting a sour taste into my mouth. I was really looking forward to seeing Edge and Orton, and I have to say, based on the quality of, I think, the feud so far, it was a good segment, but not at the level of, I think, the prior segments with Matt Hardy or Beth Phoenix. So that might have been a bit of a letdown, but it was still a very healthy, good segment, and it's a very healthy feud. Beyond that, AJ had like sort of this like semi-shoot promo on the Undertaker that was interesting. Drew McIntyre killed a spider. And like, dude, that was it. What else is there? This Becky Lynch promo, like, it was nothing. So totally skippable, except, if you really want to see Drew McIntyre kill a giant spider. If you want to see this promo from AJ, and then the Edge stuff. But I would say a lesser Raw than previous weeks.
Yeah, I think that Raw has largely been clicking pretty well in this lead up to WrestleMania. I would say tonight's show, it had its segments, but I was expecting, like, now that Elimination Chamber is out of the way, I was expecting everything to really be geared toward WrestleMania. And yes, the focus is WrestleMania, but it just seemed like there was still a bit of a holding pattern for a lot of these programs tonight, that this almost felt like this is one extra week before everything gets, we can officially announce all these matches, send everyone into their respected division or direction for Mania. And that the third hour to me really, really dragged at the end. So that was tonight's episode of Raw. The Forum gave the show a 5.5. So they did give the show in Washington a pass. Paul from New Jersey writes, tonight's promo from Becky Lynch was great. You can tell she's trying her best to help get Shayna over to the main crowd. That said, Charlotte and Ripley is a dead feud to me. No idea why they are fighting. Something about millennials. I hope for Drew McIntyre's sake that PETA doesn't have a robotics section. I guess we're done with that. Edge and Orton was great again, but overall the show gets a 5. Too many matches that don't matter or end in a DQ. Did either of you hear Lawler call Asuka Akana? I guess this is an amalgamation of both her names. Asuka and Kana.
Yeah. I didn't. Even if I did, it's like whatever. Like nothing. Like, what is it? Is that a big deal now? Like, of course he's going to screw things up. We go to Joe from Niagara, who says, hey guys, it's been a while, but before I begin, let me get in my comment countdown. 3, 2, 1. Love the momentum behind Drew. The crowd is really behind this guy, and so am I. Great promo by AJ Styles tonight. I have to say, the potential I see in Angel Garza is insane. Man, this guy is just oozing with charisma. Quick question following up on Elimination Chamber. Can you guys see some sort of alliance or tag team between Bryan and Gulak, or just a one-and-done thing with them?
I don't know. I'm not really clamoring for the two to team up together. I think you could get another match out of them on TV, but I don't know. Long term, I don't see them doing much together.
I don't really see Gulak in like Bryan's plans for WrestleMania, so I don't see this tag team really taking place right now. I hope Gulak has some sort of presence, because I would say his stock is certainly raised coming off of this pay-per-view, and maybe that was just the intent behind it all. But I don't really see any pairing between the two heading into WrestleMania.
It's a kind of performance that you would hope gets noticed, and the guy earned himself like something coming out of that, as like whether this was just designed to be a one-off program to get through Elimination Chamber. Like I think, did such a good job with Bryan that you would hope that in this system you go out there and tear it up, that there is a reward for that internally.
What would the reward be?
I mean, TV time, like some kind of push. Like that to me would be a message that you want to send to your locker room, that, if you're given an opportunity and you succeed, that you're going to be rewarded for that, as opposed to guys that would go out there, have a killer match, and they're right back into the same spot they always are.
I just feel like there's so many guys in the same position. You got like Shorty G, Apollo Crews, like even somebody like a Heath Slater. I mean, I see kind of, if anything, he perhaps earned himself a promotion to be at that level.
Adam writes, Edge, whose wife was just attacked last week. No pyro, no poses. Rhea Ripley comes out in a supposedly surprise appearance and gets pyro and poses. One is Vince's vision, the other probably came from the mind of a kid from Orangeville. Also, Charlotte still has a terrible woo. The AJ promo had to be the first time Undertaker was called Mark on WWE television. It's not, because Ken Shamrock did that once on TV, which he was a famous segment from 1999. Calling out someone else's wife might have been influenced from his feud with Samoa Joe. Do you think Michelle McCool makes an appearance at the contract signing, or is in Undertaker's corner at WrestleMania? I would say that she was so heavily a focus of that promo that it almost seems that'd be surprising for her not to have some involvement, it's very interesting as well, the timing, that last week there was that whole WWE.com list that did not list Michelle McCool in this, whatever it was, list of past female talent. And then the Undertaker's getting in there as well, complaining about her omission from this list. And now all of a sudden they're the focus of a promo this week.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. What was the list?
It was something about like it was ranking like women from, I can't remember what the exact subject line was, but then I guess they ended up adding her or something like that. And Undertaker tweets, "Too little, too late."
Oh God. Oh.
So it seems like, and then this week they're both featured in this promo.
God. Well, too little, too late. Andrew from Cape Breton says, so, a few months ago, Eric Rowan stuck his hand into the cage and his hand came out with blood. Not tonight, we had Drew McIntyre murder this man's pet for no reason. I know last week it looked robotic, but based on TV, it's supposed to be a real spider. I was reminded of when Earthquake squashed Damien and made Quake burgers out of the snake. Will Drew be making haggis out of the spider? It definitely feels like Eric Rowan will likely be joining Ricochet on main event. That show seems like it's going to be crowded now that Cedric Alexander got moved back to Raw. The 24/7 title has now become a less prestigious version of the never openweight title. The main positives tonight were the promos with Edge, Becky, and AJ. I wonder if Michelle will teach The Undertaker the Faith Breaker to counter the Styles Clash.
Jay from Colorado, I know, man, the headline tonight was supposed to be Ricochet is now a main eventer. He writes, I noticed that Ricochet appeared on main event. Is this a case of further burial of Ricochet, or is this them trying to get main event more views? Guys, this is not a promotion for Ricochet. And if it's Ricochet being buried, what the hell's going on? And what could he have done besides being terrible on the mic? We are weeks away from WrestleMania. It seems more and more likely the event will be moved to ESPN+. What is the possible motivation for WWE here? I can't imagine people dishing out 60. I would not say that is a guarantee that that the show is going to be on ESPN+. If anything, I would say that door is closing by each passing day. That
they announced it for the network.
They're promoting it on the network. Yes, so you know that's the direction right now. Now, could a deal be struck? Yes, but I would say as we're closing in on WrestleMania, like that time is winding down very quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, just in terms of Ricochet, like, I don't know what the deal is, but that guy has, I mean, just completely fallen off the face of the earth now.
All right, we go to Alex, who says, it was a good show, great AJ promo, and the Edge segment was awesome. The wrestling was so-so. Thankfully, they've gotten rid of Ricochet onto main event so we can move on to someone else.
And the last one here is Alfred. Do you guys see a four-way at WrestleMania with Rey, Garza, Humberto Carrillo, and Andrade for the U.S. title? Happy birthday, John. We share the same birthday. Well, happy birthday to you as well, Alfred. That's one direction they could go. I could not see those four ending up with Battle Royal duty. I think they have earned their own match at WrestleMania. The four-way would be fine. Like, it would probably just be a really spectacular, 12 minutes involving those four. I'm not opposed to that at all.
Seems to be the direction, that you've pretty much done every sort of combination with these four, so a straight-up four-way match, I think, for the belt would make sense.
So that's everyone's feedback. Thank you for posting up at forum.postwrestling.com. We're going to be back Tuesday night, MCU review of Avengers Infinity War. Have you watched the movie yet, Way?
Almost all of it, yeah. I have a bit more left to go.
Well, we will be joined by Brent Chittenden. Very much looking forward to chatting with Brent about this big one. We have to go grab the big guns for Infinity War.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you can check that out. That will be up on the Post Wrestling Cafe Tuesday night. And then lots of shows. You can check out the whole schedule up at postwrestling.com. And that's it. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Goodbye.